Hi textile buddies, I'm Darya, textile and surface pattern designer, educator and watercolor painter. On this channel we talk all things textile, pattern, color and artwork. Patterns are everywhere. Today let's talk all about textile print studios. They are a very common phenomenon in the world of surface pattern design and textile design and have been around for decades, but they're almost unknown to those who don't belong to the field. Way before I started in the industry, I used to think that if I buy a printed shirt from, for example, Gap, totally made up example, there is a talented artist at the Gap office who draws all the patterns, all the t-shirt graphics and so on. It could be one of the scenarios, but way more likely, the making of the artwork on your clothes was outsourced to an artist or a print studio, or actually the other way around. It was purchased at a print show where the print studio had a booth showcasing their artwork for different categories, and Gap designers visited the show and purchased or licensed dozens of artwork for their upcoming collections. Collections are usually designed a year ahead, so right now art directors and design managers are shopping and designing for actually Christmas of 2025. It is now August 2024, so now companies are designing for Christmas of next year. Weird? I thought so too, but apparently people need time. The Christmas artwork will start hitting the stores early fall, so people need time to shop before Christmas. Of course, every product category is slightly different. For example, I worked in bedding for a while and we definitely designed Christmas quilts in August. But as for stationery, where I also worked for a few years, we designed Christmas wrapping paper and packaging 9 months out of 12. So depending on the category you work for, Christmas plays a slightly different role. It's just an example. But as a common standard, designers work for something for a year in advance because manufacturers need time to produce the product, to make some samples first, then to get approval on quality and everything, and then the product can actually be made and then shipped overseas. So what is a print studio? One of the things that I don't like about the English language is the polysemy of some very commonly used words, such as the word print. If you Google print studio, you will find all sorts of businesses that print posters, signs, photographs and whatnot. The same happens on a different note if you look for designer jobs, especially product development designer jobs. A lot of the things are called designer now. Website designers, graphic designers can mean so many things and so on. Even artists are now all things, including makeup artists, baristas are called artists and so on. Anyway, getting back to print studios, they may be harder to find online because of the ambiguity of the word and also because it's a specialty, it's a niche. Sometimes it helps wording the ad textile in the beginning to make the search a little more concrete. So a textile print studio is a business that creates artworks in different mediums specifically for retail product development design, such as apparel or clothing for women, kids, men, or specifically swimwear design, home decor including bedding, curtains, table linens and so on. Stationery design such as wrapping paper, notepads, notebooks and so on. They can specifically focus on kids and baby products as well. That is a very common practice. Print studios mostly specialize in creating repeating patterns, but they can also offer woven and knitted samples, shibori, dyeing and so on. For example, if the client designs and sells sweaters, they are most likely not interested in repeating patterns in the sense we talk about them on this channel the most, but they need actual knitted patterns and samples, or whatever they are called, pattern charts maybe, like knitting charts, correct me please. Studios can also specialize on embroidery, beadwork, embellishment or dyeing and textile techniques such as shibori or tie-dye and so on. In this case, it is an even smaller niche within textile design. If you think nobody needs those things nowadays, take a look at some couture collections that are lavishly embellished with sequins, beading and techniques such as pleating and ruching. I don't have any first-hand experience with luxury brands, designing for luxury brands, unfortunately. I'm taking a guess that in this case, they do have a lot of artists and craftsmen in-house who design and create those, but they might also visit textile studios and print shows for inspiration or even purchase some samples. I'm 100% sure though they use their extensive archives, which means they reuse products and ideas they have previously created, such things as a beautiful seam or embroidery design, a silhouette, a pattern design, and so on. So what does a typical print studio do? Let's put aside the less common scenarios with actual hands-on textile techniques and talk about the design of repeating patterns. So print studios design collections and one-off prints for textiles and product development. A studio usually has some kind of specialization, although it's not uncommon to see very different designs offered by the same studio. I talked quite a bit about specialization in my video about niching down. So a studio might specialize only on hand-painted designs for home decor, or only on watercolor designs, or only on kids designs or tropical designs, for example. It's easier to market artwork this way rather than offering anything, everything, and all at once. A studio usually has a pool of designers and artists who create original artwork and a pool of designers who process the art on the computer. It can be the same people or it can be different people. They can also be working in-house or remotely. Good news is that traditional mediums are alive and well. Don't you worry, they're not going anywhere. Certain styles work better for certain markets, and there are plenty of hand-painted designs created for the home decor market, and for apparel as well. Designs for home decor are more expensive. Outright sales start at $700 and go up. It's an approximate number that can also vary depending on location and other factors. Just a side note, if you are thinking now, oh my goodness, $700 per design, I'm gonna do it right away, I'm gonna go to a print studio or become a part of a print studio or just sell my own designs. Well, it doesn't work as easy as that. There is a lot of competition, and I have personally seen suitcases and suitcases of gorgeous designs, elaborate artworks of $700 or even $1,500, which are not selling for months in a row. So artists create motifs and croquis, the preliminary stages of a pattern tile. Things are not always in repeat because not every artist has the skills of putting things in repeat, and that's not always necessary to put all those hours in, as they don't know yet whether the design will sell at all. Of course, in order to add more value for the buyer, a professional studio will very often put things in repeat, add on a couple colorways, or even throw a small collection together with a few coordinates. How do print studios sell their artwork? Very often this route implies going to a print show such as Surtex, Blueprint, or Premiere Vision. So print studios bring physical papers to show the artwork to their potential buyers. It can be either printouts, especially if the artwork was originally digital, so the artwork will be printed out on a sheet of paper, or I have also personally seen actual paintings for home decor. They are about this big, they're quite giant, there is no digital hand, they were hand painted by professional artists and painters. They are usually very expensive, and if the buyer purchases those, they will need to make a high quality scan and CAD the artwork. I have a video about textile color reducing and CADing if you want to know more about this process. These are usually the most expensive pieces of artwork, but they also don't work for every company, and it's particularly the artwork of those studios that I mentioned previously, saying that CADing might be so extensive and long if it was painted on canvas paper with glitter on top, for example, and all the brush strokes, so client might deem it unreasonable to purchase this artwork. Besides going to print shows that happen a couple times a year and are always a big deal for everybody in the field, print studios might send their representatives to visit clients at their headquarters. And it's where I saw the suitcases full of artwork when I used to work in-house. They make appointments ahead of time. They usually don't show up unannounced because everybody's working. Print studio representatives might reach out to design managers saying that they have a few collections to show, or asking if they are looking for particular topics or designs. Or the other way around, a design manager or whoever is responsible for acquiring new artwork can reach out to a studio saying, "We're in need of new dinosaur prints for our boys line. Do you have anything new or fresh?" Dinosaurs are a staple in boys surface design, and it's always a challenge to find a new interesting design with dinosaurs, because how many times can one reinvent this topic, right? A dinosaur or a unicorn for girls. That's why studios might commission new artists to create new artwork. This is called a new hand, which essentially means a new style, a new feel. Surprisingly, with all the variety and multitude all around, it is still hard to find good designs, because you need a good balance of commercial appeal and freshness. I just remembered that I was actually first told this when I was still in college, and I was very surprised. Well, yes, we were told that there is competition, but really good designs are not that many actually. Design preferences also vary greatly among different countries and regions. There is an opinion, for example, that Europe is a little more fashion forward and creative, and designs are also cheaper there, while the United States is where the most money is, and people here prefer traditional colors and designs, like a little bit more traditional. So Christmas will be very red and green. In the past couple of years there has been this like pink pastel Christmas theme, which I think came from Europe. It's been developing and it's been peaking for a couple of the past years, and with all the like resurgence of retro themes, it is still very new. But the American Christmas is very red, green and gold. So there is room for everybody in this context, in design. You might ask whether print studios do outright sales or licensing of designs. Outright sales means that you sell all the rights to the artwork. It doesn't belong to you anymore, it belongs to the buyer now. And licensing means that you basically let them use your design for a certain period of time, and they either pay you a fee for that or they pay you royalties, on yardage or on different criteria. Very often it can be a combination of both, even though from my personal experience, many larger companies prefer to buy designs and own them in perpetuity, because they become a part of their archives and they can reuse the designs across multiple categories, make numerous alterations, and owe nothing to the print studio or the artist. That doesn't mean that licensing doesn't take place. It all depends on the client's needs, because, for example, it's a smaller business that changes their designs frequently for, say, wall calendars and stationery products. This company doesn't need ownership of the design, as they will only use it for one season and move on. Hence, they can pay, a lower price just to license the design for a year. They don't need to pay the triple price of buying the artwork outright. Print studios can also offer bespoke textile and surface pattern design, especially if the connection has already been established. So the customer might request a new design with dinosaurs riding sharks or something very specific of this kind. Print studios can also offer CADing, putting things in repeat, recoloring, trend research, creating mood boards, and so on. So that's when the team of designers they have on board comes in. It can be in-house designers, like I mentioned, or freelancers. Very often print studios need freelancers to help with the computer work. Are you thinking of working for a print studio? Let's discuss some skills needed in this case. It is possible to be an artist for a print studio. In this case, you need solid painting and drawing skills, be it digital or traditional, trend awareness, and basic computer skills like scanning and tweaking your art in Photoshop. That's the minimum. You can also be a designer, putting things in repeat, developing placement graphics using fonts and other creative artwork. Let's briefly touch on the pros and cons of working for a print studio. The pros are, it's quite fun and creative working on different kinds of artwork, and if you are a multi-passionate creative, it can be a good path for you to apply all your different interests. The cons of working at a print studio are, it's harder to get in because it's not a job that is very widespread, and I think the biggest downside is that you get to work in the shadows. You don't get any credit as an artist. This can totally be okay with you though. Not everybody wants to be in the limelight, and that is not uncommon at all for textile designers to be in the shadows. You also get only a fraction of the payment for your design, But since the print studio takes on the bulk of the effort in marketing, promoting your designs and sales, it might still balance it out and you can focus more on making artwork. Print studios are similar to art agents in a lot of ways. Have you seen my video about artist agents? I wanted to mention another kind of textile studios which is very curious. They are archival studios that specialize on sourcing vintage designs and what is called document textiles. So the representatives of these studios search for interesting vintage finds with patterns and designs, buy dead stock from fabric mills that then they sell to companies. They can go to flea markets, yard sales and estate sales and have to look through piles of vintage objects and trash sometimes to find potentially interesting fabrics, garments and other things. The joys of thrifting, right? Of course, on this route one has to be super careful about copyright, but the thing is, on many vintage items the copyright either was never registered or already expired. That's why the textile studios are able to do it. But what can happen in this case, and I have witnessed it a couple of times, the same scrap of fabric can be sold, not on purpose, to a few different companies in different parts of the country, just by accident. So you gotta be careful with that as well. So what do you think of print studios? Would you be interested in working for them? If you are looking for them, you can check the exhibitor list of print shows such as Print Source and Surtex. You can Google textile print studios or textile studios. I will leave a short list of print studios here. You can also check their Instagram accounts, see who they follow, and you might get more names of print studios. A lot of print studios are located in New York City, London, and the UK, and Australia as well. Of course, there are some in Europe and other parts of the world too. If you've enjoyed this video, I would appreciate your like. It's a free equivalent of saying thank you, and don't forget to subscribe, share this video with your art and pattern buddies, and remember, patterns are everywhere.